Good, we are recording. Welcome to episode 46 of Faith and Calm. Tonight's episode is titled, let me get the title down, right? It's called Spring Yourself from the Jails That You Create. Okay, and I think the title is good, at least for me. Hope you have something interesting to say. I think I have something interesting to say.
You always do.
Maybe she'll have some more stories. I have only like two little short stories. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the parsha of last week. As usual, I'm talking about the last week where we had the 10 Commandments, the Seres Dibros, and the first of the commandments is that I am the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. Okay. Oh, there's Scott. Hi. All right. And I think there's a lesson here. The lesson is, and it's a lesson about life and about the important things in life, because many people have wondered about this first commandment. In fact, if you look at the Christian Bible, I don't recommend it, but if you do, they don't even list it. They leave that one out. They don't have the first commandment. They say, where's the commandment? What's it supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? Believe in God? If you don't believe in God, then who's commanding you to believe in God? It doesn't make any sense. And that's actually a very smart question. It's not a stupid question. That Barbanel deals with that question. So the mitzvah is not to believe in God. It's not a commandment. You shall believe, because if you don't believe, you don't believe. The question is, you have to know. What does it mean to know? What does it mean to know that there's a God? So let's get to this idea. The first commandment says, I am the Lord your God that took you out of Egypt. What does the first thing have to do with the second? Let me point out that there's problem here and so forth. The problem between the two is, I am the Lord your God. Okay, that's interesting. Who created the heavens and the earth? That would make a lot of sense. In fact, the famous story that Rabbi Yosef tells in the Kuzari, that there was a king of the Khazars in the early Middle Ages, 1200s or so forth, who invited a rabbi, a priest, and a Muslim imam. It's like, that sounds like a joke, and he had some philosophical questions and he wanted to know what was the right religion. And they all said, that's what they said. They said, the Lord, the God, he created the heavens and the earth. And the rabbi said, no, I took the Jews out of Egypt. That's the idea. And he was so impressed that his whole country converted, and they became Jewish, converted to Judaism. It's the land of the Khazars, the king and the whole community. And what is so important about knowing that God took us out of Egypt? I mean, I am the Lord your God who gave me the command of the light Shabbos candles. It's like, what does one thing have to do with the other? They don't seem to connect very well. But they do connect very well, and that's what the point of the first commandment is. It's very much so, because the word that we use is that took you out of the land of Egypt. Egypt in Hebrew is Mitzrayim. It means constraints. It means prison. It means a tight space. It means being stuck in your situation. Slavery exists on many levels. There was the physical slavery of Egypt, but there is also the psychological slavery. The psychological slavery that we all experience, we all are get into that, is that we feel that the natural world enslaves us and constrains us, and that life is not really changing. And this is what it is. And these are my hangs-ups, and these are my worries, and these are my anxieties. And everybody is pressed and constrained by these things. Everybody has their fears and their worries. Not some more of the day, some less of the day. But we all have those things come up, and it bothers us. And we think, how am I going to get out of this? I am in the Mitzrayim. I am in a constraint. How do I get out of these things? I am trapped. And I have a lot of logical reasons, and I could bring it up to you and say why I'm in such a trap. Some people have huge issues, and you have to. And it's true, life does give those kind of issues. But the first commandment is, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am the Lord your God. That doesn't define you. That isn't what it is. I took you out of the land of Egypt. I can take you out at any particular time. I am the one who created this whole universe, and I am the one who have, and you are my representative, and you are able to get out of these situations, no matter how bad it looks like, or how difficult, or how many years you've been trying to change your situation. You can get out of it because I am the Lord your God. I have that ability, and since you are a part of me, and your soul is part of me, you are also not really in that situation. And I've said this many times. But this is actually, it's not easy to get to that point, to understand it and to feel it and to internalize it. I understand that. That's why praying is very important, and every act that we do is important, because they all help bring this reality make us internalize and feel this reality that we really aren't trapped. We make ourselves trapped. We psychologically bind ourselves into this kind of a slavery because we say, this is how it is, and this is how it's staying. And and if you do that, then you do remain in your prisons, and you do remain in your traps. But the thing is, God is telling us is the first commandment is, I am the Lord your God. This is not what I wanted from you. I did not want you to be a small person and to be trapped and to be always worried and anxious about what's going on. I'm giving you the ability, I'm giving you the powers, and all you have to do is unleash that inside of yourself, and you will be free. You will be free. You have to work at it though, and you have to sometimes really put yourself in. You have to sometimes put in every fiber of your being to try and understand, I am not really trapped in this way. But when you do that, when you go one step further, when you go one beyond your comfort zone, and you say, you don't just take the easy way out, I'd like to, just sit on the beach in Miami and drink pina coladas and go for a swim and things like that. But that's not the way to get out of your traps. Get out of your traps is to put a little bit of effort into it every day. And that's part of our prayer. It can be prayer. It can be how you relate to other people. How can we talk to other people? But you have to have this mindset of, I'm not trapped. And if I do run into somebody who is trapped, then I have to be a free person myself, because that's how I'm going to influence that other person. So to segue slightly the concept a little bit, but I think it also adds to this picture, is that the precursor and the preparation for receiving the Torah was the splitting of the Yam Suf, splitting of the Red Sea, which was 2 weeks ago. We talked about that. Why is that an important thing? Because we read that at people who pray every single day. We talk about that, and every Shema, that 3 times a day, we mention this idea of the splitting of the Yam Suf. And if you know anything about the history, the story there, it was that this Red Sea was not a separating body between Egypt and Israel. You could go around it. In fact, the Jews didn't even have to even go in it at all. And when they went in sort of a semicircle. They went in on one side and they came back on the same side again. So what was the point? They didn't go from one side to the other. There was really no travel at all. And yet, this is a very important event. It's a very important event. And we talk about it. Why did they have to, what's the point of going in and coming out on the same side? So there was something that's valuable in this idea of the sea splitting and then walking through on dry land. So to understand this, and it's a little philosophical, but I'll try and make it simple, is that there's a difference between sea and land, right? I got that. Okay, what's the difference between sea and land? On the land, things on the land and dry surface, I see what they are. I mean, I see the creatures. They're all separate. They're out their own identity. In the water, there's a lot of different creatures involved, but I don't see them. I just see one big mass. So it's all united. It's all connected. It's all absorbed in one thing. And also the fish, if you take them out of the water, they don't live very long. So they only survive when they're connected and they're still in their source. Oh, that's the lesson. The lesson in Kabbalistic thought is that these refer to 2 different worlds. One is called Alma Disgala, and the other is called Alma Discasia. Forget it. These are complicated Aramaic words. One is the world of concealment, and one is the world of revelation. And we have both elements inside of ourselves. One part of ourselves wants to be attached to our sources. It's very important to be connected to other people, to have a mission, attachment, there's a whole field of psychology called attachment theory, attachment disorder, which talks about people who, when they were young, did not get affirmations, did not get validations, and they're constantly searching for something to finally make them feel like they're needed and wanted. It's a deep need in the human soul. The very first line in the Torah that talks about human beings says it's not good for a person to be alone. And therefore, God says, I'll make a helpmate for Adam because it's not good to be alone. And in this week's parsha in Yisro tells the same thing to Moshe. It's not good for you to be alone, and you need helpers to lead the Jewish people. So you have to point heads of 50s, heads of 10s, heads of 100s, heads of 500s, and so forth. So being alone is not good. We human beings, we need to feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves and connected to other people. And when we're alone, there's a void inside of ourselves, and we don't feel it's very hard to be you when you don't have that inner core inside of yourself. How can you be an individual, a not unique individual, if you don't have that? On the other hand, the opposite is also true, oddly enough. Many people, many marriages fail because they feel that they just were absorbed and swallowed up in the other person, and they didn't have an identity for themselves. So we have to also feel independent. That's the dry land aspect. That's being an independent person. It's being, we need to have our own identity that's different than anybody else. So how do we solve this dilemma? How do we feel both attached and independent? And the answer is Torah gives us that ability. Ultimately, the goal is to walk on the sea in the dry land. What's that message? What is that talking about? That's saying that, the ultimate experience is that to be a human being is to not feel like you're swallowed up in godliness or in something bigger than yourself, but to have that with you as an independent individual out walking on the dry land, to have both together. I'll explain it this way. Okay, two stories then. What is, so Rabbi Simon Jacobson tells this story. Not Peter Himmelman. Oh, okay. No, Rabbi, his brother tells the story. He tells the story of a guy he met once, a very sincere guy. And he was a big workaholic. And he asked him once, he says, why do you work so hard? And his answer was pretty much like this. He said, I work so hard because when I was young, I didn't get validation and I didn't get affirmations from my parents and from the people around me. And therefore, now I'm going to work so hard that they will feel that I'm an indispensable person in this company and they will really need me. So what's he basically saying? He's not saying that he's working for his self-fulfillment or it's part of who he is. He's working because he's trying to get attached because he has a void inside himself that he needs to feel connected. So when you're doing that, the problem is you have to diagnose yourself and you have to say, you know what? No, that's not healthy. That's not healthy. I mean, because you're not living for yourself. You're living because you need to be, because of something, because of this hole inside yourself. So we have to know that we have to be attached. On the other hand, the other part is there was a musician named Peter Himmelman. And he was once learning with Rabbi Simon Jacobson. He's a famous musician. And he saw a picture of the Rebbe on the wall. And he asked Rabbi Simon Jacobson very cynically and confrontationally, because he was just becoming religious. He was just becoming connected to Judaism, back to his Jewish roots. He didn't know much about it. He said, that rabbi, you're a follower of that rabbi? He says, yeah. He says, I suppose you think that your rabbi can fly through the air. So Simon said to him back, he said, I don't know if he can. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. But I know one thing, that walking on the ground for the Rebbe is exactly the same experience as flying through the air. It's both an act of miracle. So the goal is really to be able to feel that everything in this world, we've been walking on the dry land, being an independent person, doing your activities is also something that is ultimately is part of my deep connection to God. I'm always connected to God, and I'm always like a fish in water. I'm always part of that bigger picture. And this answers the next question, which is, why do we talk so much about this idea, this thing of Torah? Okay, so I'm going to digress a little bit. I'm going to tell you an interesting law, Jewish law, and it goes as follows. In a courtroom, in a Jewish courtroom, they only accept testimony from eyewitnesses. They don't take hearsay testimony. There's a question that's raised in the Gemara about this. And they say, what happens if the person knew that when he saw the event, he knew he could forget it, and he wrote it down on a piece of paper. And now, and he goes into court, he looks at the piece of paper, and then he gives his testimony. Is he giving live eyewitness testimony, or is he reading a piece of paper? So the rabbis disagree. Some say, no, he's just reading a piece of paper. That's not testimony. That's not eyewitness. It could be false. He didn't know. We don't know. And the other one says, no, he's just using that to trigger his memory. But really what he's doing is he's actually just using the paper to trigger it, but he's giving the testimony based on his triggered memory. The ruling is, the final ruling of the Gemara is that it is allowed to read the piece of paper and to then give the testimony, because that is what the paper was all about. It was to remind you of the actual event that you happened. What do we learn from this? We learn from this what Torah really is. Some people think that Torah is a book and it has a lot of ideas and a lot of facts, and they teach it in classes and they give it over. Ultimately, what it is a tool for reminding us of the event of Har Sinai, that all of the Jews were there and they all have experienced what the reality is. They all, like when they went through the Yam Suf, they saw godliness and they saw the reality of the world, and they saw that the sea split, which means that the world was no longer a concealment. They saw all the way down to the ultimate reality. And the same thing happened at Har Sinai. The Jewish souls at that point in time saw what was truth. No longer was the world a concealment of what the truth is. You saw the world and you saw its basis in everything. And you didn't feel like an independent, separated fish out of water, an independent existence. You saw your connection to the whole reality. I'll tell you something. Every single soul was at Har Sinai. Not only is this a historical event that happened 3,333 years ago, but every one of our souls was there too. And when we learn Torah, and when it's given over in the correct way, then it actually is not just a bunch of ideas and facts that's being given over, but it's supposed to resonate with you and saying, wow, now I just remembered what my soul always knew. This feels good to me. This feels true to me. This feels exciting to me. This kindles my soul. I'm excited to come to these classes. I'm excited to learn this stuff. I don't know why. Well, that's because your soul actually has embedded in its DNA this experience. And when Torah is given over the right way, and I don't know that I do it necessarily, but from the right teacher and from the right channel, all of a sudden it starts resonating. And all of a sudden you begin to connect to yourself. So real learning in Torah's idea is not that you're learning something new or fact. You're really just rediscovering something that your soul already knew when it was already before it was born, because every soul started absorbed in the water, in the amniotic sac. It was part of this divine existence. It was like a fish in water. It was connected to its source. It didn't have this idea of feeling alienated and cold and worried and fearful and all this other things that come with an independent existence. When you have an independent existence, you're always worried about how you're going to keep your little life together and how you're going to keep your things together and so forth. But if you feel that yourself is part of an infinite being, then you know that you can't destroy, because God can't be destroyed and he's not going to destroy the world, and it's going to continue. And so you feel part of that bigger picture. So most of our fears and most of our anxieties and most of our slavery to this world and to things in this world all come from this deep and existential thing that we have, this dual nature that God implanted in us. The one is that we want to feel independent, And that means that therefore then we have a shaky, uncertain existence. And then the other part is, yes, but you have to also realize that you are always part of a big picture. When you're all by yourself, that's when you get the most fears and worries. And when you feel attachment and you feel that you don't have this attachment syndrome, and you feel attached to a bigger picture, which is what all Jewish practice is about, what the Torah is about. It's supposed to awaken in yourself and awaken in the person this idea that you are a witness. The prophet Yeshayahu says, Edimata, you are my witnesses. You are my witnesses. You have an experience inside of you, each and one of you, me too. We all have had this experience of actually seeing and being at Har Sinai and seeing, what the whole world, the whole picture and all of life was all about. And what we're trying to do is reconnect and have that experience again, so that then when we go out into the world, we can stand on confidently and know, yeah, I can walk through anything. Water's not going to stop me. Oceans are not going to stop me. Har Sinai, I'm not going to be scared with the thunder and lightning or whatever else is going on in this world. I don't have to worry about that because it's all I'm connected to an infinite source. Okay. Go ahead. Yes, we'll try a few questions.
I'm going to ask you to back up a little bit, because I had never heard that the journey when the sea split was sort of semicircular. So doesn't that mean that really the Jews never left Egypt? They only wound back up further up the shoreline.
Well, they did. Obviously, what they did is after the Egyptians all were drowned and they collected all the booty at the end of at the edge of the sea, they took it with them and then they proceeded on their journey. And if you look at some of the better maps of this situation, they'll show you that. And then they'll say, well, then they went around the side of the Yam Suf because it was not really a barrier between where they were supposed to go. They just had to back up and go back the right path. And if you look carefully at the text, you will see that the whole inspiration of Paro chasing after the Jews was because he got a message. Let me tell you, back up a little bit there. So he said, the Jews were sent out of Egypt. They spent 6 days leaving Egypt. On the 7th day, God turned them to turn around and go backwards, right before this idol called Piahirot. And Paro heard about this because he had planted spies among the Jewish people. And he said, oh, they're trapped in the land. They're lost and they don't know which way to go anymore. They're not headed in the right direction anymore. So then he chased after them and he caught up with them. And that's what happened so they were going the wrong direction. So that's why they were in the wrong direction. They were at the Yam Suf. They didn't have to go that direction to get to Israel. So when he saw that they were going the wrong direction, then he chased after them. They went into the sea. They followed after. They came back, and then they went back on the right path again. So that's the story. But the lesson, as I said, was is this strange idea that the splitting Red Sea was not just God had to do some random miracle. It was about giving a lesson to our souls, all of the Jews who left Egypt. And that is that you have this dual nature. And I know you have this dual nature. And until you recognize it, you're going to be in a lot of turmoil, because you're going to think that you're supposed to be attached. And I need to be attached to somebody, and I need to be attached to my mission, and I need to be attached to God, and I need to feel this connection, because all by myself, I'm always fearful and so forth. On the other hand, too much attachment, and it's like I disappear into, I don't have my own identity. Yeah. And you got to try and figure out how to feel both of those things at the same time, both that you feel independent and also that you're still attached.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have what I hope is a complimentary thought to share about this that I was wondering about. So I actually did know about the semicircle thing, and I've learned a lot of different things about this. But as you were speaking about the natures, I guess the thought that kept coming up in my mind is mikvah, and particularly when you use mikvah to transition from one state to another. But I was thinking more about the converts, who literally you have to use the mikvah as the last piece to change your identity. And that in some ways, the Jews had to somehow do something to go from slavery to freedom, that you literally have to have an identity change. So even though they weren't like immersed in the water. That was that whole like act of faith business, because literally the Egyptians are behind them. And then the water just opens for them because obviously they were trapped. They had no place to go. So they take this act of faith and step it. The water didn't even part until I think they stepped in it. They actually, some people say that they even had the first guy, I forget his name, had his head up to here before the water actually parted. But they were literally going on faith. But that there's something about that immersion that maybe allowed them to have that sort of identity shift and that like soul consciousness. I'm thinking again about this connection to mikvah around it, but then I don't know how that works if the land is dry. But at least when they came back to the land in that semicircle, they probably came back really differently. And then the other thing I think happened is that the Egyptians that went after them drowned. So this actually had a way of sort of allowing them to finally achieve their freedom if the people that were chasing them weren't able to either wait for them on the other side of the semicircle or who came into the water and then got washed away. So that was sort of
yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. It says it connects to some of the other things that I heard about that. First off, it's sort of like we were trying to also explain, why are we so fascinated with water? I love water. I love swimming and stuff like that. And we all are sort of fascinated to watch the ocean and watch the waves. There's something that it speaks to you about, something about that total immersion experience. And then mikveh has that sort of aspect too. If you're open to it and you allow yourself to experience it, and you just sort of melt away into being absorbed into, and involved in the water and so forth. So there's something about this that's somewhere speaks at a very deep level within our souls about this idea of being absorbed and part of the water. And I think that there is definitely something to it, but we can't just be water creatures all the time. We have to come out on dry land and do be individuals and do individual tasks and all this other kind of stuff. The question is, how do you not have a schizophrenic experience? How do you have both these identities at the same time? And the answer is, I think that's what, that's what I've been noticing when I pray in the morning. I try and, more and more trying to just absorb what are the thoughts, what are the concepts, what am I supposed to be thinking about, just to be absorbed and connected and speaking to my soul and speaking to God, speaking to the deepest parts of myself. It's great therapy, you talk and you say, God, this is what's going on with me. And I can be 100% honest because he knows every stupid idea in my head. And I can just let myself open up and experience that. And it makes you a stronger person the rest of the day. It really does. So I think it's great therapy. And I think it's a great spiritual strength is, spend a little time, give God 5-10 minutes in the morning every day and just say, I know you, I know God, I'm part of you. And I'm speaking honestly and openly and from the depth of my soul. And when I speak that way, it's a powerful experience. It transforms the prayer from something that's just a document, words, like I said before, that you wrote down, into a living experience. And then you become a witness. You open up your soul a little bit. And it gives you better strength for the rest of the day. So I think, it's... I'm speaking for myself, but I don't know if anyone else has the same experience, but the more I put the effort into it, the more I feel that this is actually a very, very powerful way to begin the day.
I have to agree with you. I feel like when I do it, when I say the prayers in the morning, that I feel like I've just done something that I was supposed to do, that the day to get the day started, it just feels. And I noticed the other day, I didn't realize this, that there is a place in the Shachar service where you can say a prayer of your own, in addition to what the prayers are. And when you read the prayers, you see how much is covered in the prayers about life, about so many aspects of life, as well as about the Exodus.
Yeah.
So it's, you make that connection early on. Just like we turn on our Wi-Fi, we make that connection, that soul connection.
Okay, good.
Beautiful.
I'm gonna
Thank
turn
you,
over the
Dr.
camera
Sherman.
to and the thing. Don't everybody run away. My wife likes to. I'm sure she has something very interesting to say and maybe a little bit more digestible. Oh, and the last thing I'm going to say is I don't know you knew this, but Rabbi Avram Twersky passed away this week. He was 98 years old, and I really liked him. He was a tremendous, a big rabbi from a very big rabbinic family. But when I first learned him in 1989, when I picked up these are some of the earliest books that I picked up. Sorry, it's a mirror image. But what he did was
it's not
he
a
wrote.
mirror image for them.
Oh, not for them. Okay, is it's two books on Charlie Brown comic books and his explanation of how Charles Schultz was a fantastic psychologist. So if you ever get a chance, pick these up at Twersky. And these are really very interesting. He takes all of Charlie Brown's issues in psychology and so forth, and he analyzes it and brings these very simple, easy to grasp, understandable things. And Twersky was both a rabbi and a very famous psychologist, as I said. Okay.
Thank you, Yecheskel Shimon. Yasher Koach.
Okay, good. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Okay. So nice. Hi, Joan. Hi, Emily. Hi, Karen. Hi, Sari. Hi, Molly. Hi, Yael. Um, and hi, David's iPad. Hi, Rena. Hi, Karen. Okay.
Hello.
Okay, hello to everybody. Okay, now, maybe I can do that. Good. So I'm going to start out by the same way I always start out, and I'm going to say that I like to remember, I like to remind us, and I like to remember myself that we're in an extraordinary time, you and I, and we're in an extraordinary time because Lubavitcher Rebbe told us many years, I don't know how long, in 1992, he told us that we are in the era of the beginning of the unfolding of the redemption, something the Jewish people have waited for millennia for, and we are the generation. So, and we also, and as I say each time, our souls were handpicked to be at this incredible juncture in history, the most important passage in world history, and that Hashem gave us many tools in order to navigate this time. He gave us great leaders. He gave us the Rebbe. The Rebbe is the navigator, but the the guide to this time, an amazing guide to this time. And he gave us the Torah, which is our guidebook, and mitzvahs, which are our mitzvahs make you, they not only open up incredible channels, they transform the world, and they make a person very sane. And the last thing I like to say is that our learning tonight is advancing the process towards our desired destination, towards the redemption. So, okay, so I also usually give a tiny review of what we did last week. Last week we talked about the power of gratitude, and we talked about not just saying thank you, not just saying an isolated thank you to God, once in a while, but gratitude and abundance is the most powerful tool for sanity. It's probably the most powerful tool for sanity that I know. And I told 3 stories: the gefilte fish saga, another personal story, and also I thought this was the best. The best story was about a young Jewish woman in a psychiatric hospital, and what gratitude did for her. And if you didn't see it, I would urge you to listen to that story in particular. So tonight I want to talk about something entirely different, and so I don't know if anybody knows this about me, but there are 3 topics that I absolutely avoid. I don't talk about them. I don't even talk about them at the dinner table. I don't talk about them, and they are politics, virus, and vaccine. I don't talk about any of them. I don't talk about them in any setting. And the reason I don't talk about them in any setting is not because I don't have opinions. It's because I've seen over the past year what it does to people. It is those 3 topics, which are one in the same, are so explosive and so divisive. Even people that even people who are not on opposite sides of the issue, if they're just like not the same, they're a little bit off from each other. It's just, it's shocking how much divisiveness there is in our world at this point over these three things. And so I don't go there. You can't force me to go there. There are people who want me to go there, and I say, no, I'm not doing it. So anyway, this week it bit me. What happened? Let me back up. I just wanted to say one more thing. I remember at some point during this year, I had already noticed that that these topics produced such divisiveness. It was incredible. But then I saw that I'm on a few WhatsApps, and a couple of them are just Torah observant women. You know, it's two WhatsApps with Torah observant women, and Torah observant women are among the easiest people in the world to talk to, because they not only, Jewish women in general are very easy to talk to because they're so helpful, so wonderful, so ready to turn over the world for you. And Torah observant women are just like that. And their kindness on, how would you say it? Kindness on opiates. They're so kind. It's unbelievable. They do such incredible things for each other. It's mind-boggling what some of these women do. I'm not in their league whatsoever, but it's mind-boggling what they do to help each other. They're so kind. It's unbelievable. And in the last few months, since the vaccine, I saw snippy comments on these from women's WhatsApps about the virus, about the vaccine. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's even gone here. There's even divisiveness here in a place where it's shocking. It's shocking to even conceive of divisiveness and snippiness. Snippiness doesn't go there. It doesn't go with this group at all. So I thought, oh man, these topics are really, they're explosive. They're not to be dealt with lightly, that's for sure. So anyway, what happened to me this week? This week, I saw something that I felt could not go without comment, and could not go without comment for me. I just felt I had to say something, but I didn't say anything. And I just kept thinking, how am I going to say it? What am I going to say? How am I going to tell this person that they crossed a line? How am I going to tell this person? And I thought about it, and I kept thinking, no, I'm not thinking about it now. I have other things to do. And when in the middle of the night, I would wake up and I would be thinking about it. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd be thinking about it, to the extent that I had to distract myself from it. And when the thoughts of how I would answer this person, because I clearly felt that I understood the situation better than they understood it. I had information that they didn't have, and I had to give them this. I had to tell them where they were going wrong. All of a sudden it dawned on me, oh my gosh, Shalom Yehudis, you're infected. You are infected. You're not infected with corona. You're infected with divisiveness. You are infected. You got the infection. And I think it's as powerful as an infection as corona. And I think it's more pervasive, and it's more difficult to treat. Well, maybe it's not more difficult to treat, but it's something that people are not thinking so much about treating. So I can't cure corona, and whatever we do to cure corona, whether you go with the virus, whether you go with the other cures that are out there, it's all in Hashem's hands. That's completely in Hashem's hands. But I can do something about this other virus, this virus of divisiveness, and I can do something about starting with me. And hopefully that, hopefully when a person starts with themselves, it somehow will have an effect on the whole world. So, obviously the cure for divisiveness is unity. And I wanted, we're approaching the holiday of Purim, right? And Purim is like a fun, interesting holiday, but it was extraordinarily serious when it was happening. It was incredible. It was so frightening. It was, for those who don't know it, Purim really happened. and the entire Jewish world was under threat of annihilation in one day. Haman, commonly known as Haman, in Hebrew it's Haman. Haman planned to annihilate the entire Jewish people on the 14th of Adar. He chose he threw lots, and the word Purim means lots. He threw lots, and he came up with this date, 11 months in the future, and he asked Achashverosh, I want permission to get rid of this people, this irritating people, the people that everybody's irritated with. They've always been irritated with us throughout human history. Everybody's been irritated with us. So and Achashverosh, who was much like Haman, except, he had the same goals as Haman, but a totally different personality. He said, fine, take my ring, make a law, do whatever you want. So the entire and what did Haman accuse the Jewish people of to Achashverosh when he was making his big speech about why he should be allowed to annihilate all the Jews in one day? He said, they're scattered. They're not together. And we know that everything that's written in the Megillah is super important. And when Haman is making his accusation, that's because there was an accusation in heaven about the Jewish people that they are not together. And if the Jewish people are not together, that's it's not good in heaven for us. So Hashem allowed this horrible scare to happen. And what was the Jewish people's reaction? The Jewish people's reaction is that they dropped their divisiveness completely. They all went back to to doing what they're supposed to be doing. They went back to Torah and mitzvos. They went back to being united. They universally, they were so united. It was amazing. They had months, 10, 11 months until the decree was supposed to take effect. And during that time, they all decided, every single one of them, that they are going to stick to Hashem and stick to the Torah and mitzvahs and beg Hashem for salvation. Every single one of them, any single one of them, could have gotten out of Haman's decree simply by saying, okay, I'll give up this Jewish stuff, forget it, it's not for me, I want to live. Anyone could have done that. And not a single person did that. They said, no, there's no life without Hashem. We're sticking with Hashem. We're just going to dive into Hashem. So unity is what saved the Jewish people back then. So maybe it's something that can help us right now. So I want to give one example of unity. Just 1 second. I'm going to take a sip of water. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihya b'dvaro. So one example of unity is, and I don't think I've told this story in this setting before. If I have, it's worth hearing again, but I don't think I've told it. I speak in many settings, so sometimes I can forget, but I don't think I have. So in 1977, did I tell the story about the Rebbe's heart attack? In 1977, the Lubavitcher Rebbe was about 76 years old. And on Shmini Atzeres, I guess it was, either Simchas Torah or Shmini Atzeres, the Rebbe suffered in shul, in synagogue, he suffered a massive heart attack. And they, this is on Yantif, and they brought him to a room in another, his office in 770 in the big building, and because it's a matter of life and death, and the Rebbe said that he was not going to the hospital, he refused to go to the hospital. So what did they do? They set up a hospital in 770. They called in all sorts of equipment. You can do anything on Shabbos and Yom Tov to save a life. And Molly, did I tell this story here?
Did you tell this story here?
Yeah.
I don't know if you told it here or not. I happen to know the story.
Okay, good. I don't think I told it here.
I
Anyway,
have heard the story, but I
know.
heard it from you years ago. This
Years
is
ago.
one of my
Okay, good.
favorites.
Okay,
I
good.
just also
So,
wanted to say I love everything that you just said in the last 20 minutes. That just pleased me immensely. So I was so happy to hear about the divisiveness. Anyway,
Okay,
I want
good.
you to continue with your story.
Okay, good. So I'll tell you that it was Yontif. And, Orthodox people are very serious about Yontif. When people heard that, when people realized that when the word went around that the Rebbe had a heart attack and that he's not going to the hospital and that he wants to stay here, and the idea was gotten together, we'll make 770 into a hospital. That's what we'll do. The Hasidim ran home. They ran into their houses. They grabbed whatever money they had. They stuffed it into bags and they ran back to 770 with bags of money. For an Orthodox Jew to touch money on Yontif is something that nobody would dream of, but it's a matter of life and death. So they ran with money to 770 to set up a hospital, and they ordered equipment, and doctors came in, and with the equipment that they had, they told the Rebbe that you had a massive heart attack, and we can tell that you're going to have another one probably in the middle of the night, and it's going to be even bigger than the first one. We see another one happening, and this is what we want you to do. They begged him to take him to the hospital, and he said, no, I'm not going to the hospital. I'm just not going to the hospital. If anything happens to me, I want it to happen here. And I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And so they said, okay, so do this for us. This is what we want to do. We want to give you an injection that will put you into a very deep sleep. And because you'll be in a very deep sleep, your body will be able to manage the second heart attack better when it comes. And so the Rebbe said, no, I don't want you to give me the injection, because you know what you're going to do? As soon as you give me the injection, as soon as I'm out, you're going to take me to the hospital. I know. And they all promised, no, we're not going to do it. We just want permission to give you the injection. And the Rebbe said, okay, you promised? Okay, you can give me the injection. They gave him the injection. As soon as he was out, they turned to the Rebbitzin, and they said, the Rebbe's wife, who was 77, they turned to the Rebbitzin and they said, Rebbitzin, we want to take him to the hospital. She said, but you promised the Rebbe. And they said, yes, it's true, but it's a matter of life and death. And Rebbitzin, if you tell us to take him, we will ignore what he said and we will follow what you said. It's a matter of life and death. And she said, no, you're not taking him to the hospital. She said in Yiddish, she said, was my man will ich. What my man wants, what my man in Yiddish is husband, what my husband wants, that's what I want. Even though she realized it's that he might do better, it might save his life to take him to the hospital, she would not. It was so important to her. If it was important to the Rebbe to say no, and the Rebbe said it with full consciousness and full understanding, she was not going to violate his trust, even if it cost his life. She was not going to violate his trust. And you have to know from their lives, he was her whole life. She was as public as he was. She was a complete recluse, there are people who grew up in Crown Heights. They grew up there and they never saw her in their entire life. She was that private. And
Shalamis,
yeah,
it makes me think of Moshe and Zipporah a little bit.
It makes me, there are a few other parallels in Jewish history. There are a few other parallels. So anyway, so she said, no, there's no such, I'm not going to think that I know better than the Rebbe. I'm not going to, that's this, that's divisiveness. Divisiveness is, we all think we're a little bit more shrewd than the next guy, and that we've thought it out better. We've thought out the virus better. We've thought out the vaccine better. We've thought out politics better. We're a shrewd observer, but it leads to maybe we are, the Jewish people are very smart. We're very, very smart, thank God. But it leads to such a bad conclusion. The Rebbe the Rebbe went through the second heart attack, and they didn't move him, and he was remarkable. He weathered it even that night remarkably, absolutely remarkably, and he got stronger and stronger and stronger, and he defied the doctor's predictions, and he in in the decades that followed, he was even more active, got even less sleep, got, he lived a life, his life is totally for the Jewish people. So anyway, there is the fix for divisiveness is shalom, is peacefulness, is not peacefulness. Shalom is unity. Shalom is wholeness. And by, so I was thinking these thoughts, and by divine providence, I stumbled on, I was listening to one of my telephone lines that I listen to, and all of a sudden I stumbled on something called the Shalom Challenge. I thought, oh, that's so interesting. And I listened to one of the things, and it made a very good point. It was a brief little thing on the virtue of peace, and the commentator was saying that the Earth has 317 million square miles on it of oceans and rivers and continents and valleys and villages and metropolises, and some are at war, some are have alliances, and some of them are they're rivals, and also in that world there's so many different things going on. Would any human being even dream of judging the whole world? Would any human being, you can't, it's too complex. So the Torah says that a human being is an olam katan. A human being is olam male. Every person is a whole world. They have history. They have things that have happened to them that you don't know about. They have relationships that you don't know about. They have strengths. They have all these different things, and yet we each feel capable of judging each other. And very often, when a person does one thing, we give a label to them. And we think that we are shrewd observers, that we know, we understand, but it's a farce, because every person is an enormous, complicated, rich person. A person is not just a person; they're a soul. They're a soul, and they have they have a mind with lots of aspirations and different things that we know nothing about. So the cure for divisiveness is to focus on the grandeur and the beauty of each person. And when we do that, it's not like we're making up a lie. We're focusing on the truth, because that's really the truth. The truth is that this is a complicated person, a rich person with so much going on in them. Very often the people that we judge are, they have good hanging from them, but they've just irritated us in one way. So this person who gave this little class on the Shalom Challenge said, he had a good piece of advice. He said that, get rid of the label that you've given to this person. Think about a person that you've given a negative label to. It could be one of your own kids. Think about that label and get rid of it, and give them a new label, a new complimentary label. And when you give them a new complimentary label, you're going to find your love for them increasing. And when you deal with them the next time, make sure you have that new, somebody is making noise. Make sure you have that new label in your head when you talk to them. So anyway, I'm planning on doing it. I have a couple of people that sometimes I have a little bit of a label for, and I'm gonna try and switch that thing. So okay, good. And let's see what time it is. It's 7:58. So I want to add one last point from Torah, and this I also got from that class, from a different section of that class. That if you were to go to the grocery store, and you go to the checkout line, and you have like more than 20 things in your carriage, and the cashier says to you, "Okay, I rang you up. Now, do you want to pay 5 cents for a bag, or do you want to carry all these things home yourself?" And so a sane person, if you don't have bags with you, a sane person will say, of course, the biggest bargain in the world. If I carry everything in my hands, the mayonnaise is going to go smash. The mustard is going to squeeze out all over the place. It's going to be a mess. So the Torah says, what is, we have lots, all the groceries you bought cost a lot of money. You don't want to lose it without, you'll buy this 5-cent bag. So the Torah says, what is the biggest vessel to hold blessings? We all have blessings that we need in our life. We have blessings that we need companionship. We need health. We need income. We need all these things. We need friendship. We need all these different things. The Torah says there is one vessel grander than any other to hold all these blessings, like the 5-cent bag. What is the 5-cent bag? The 5-cent bag that we need is peace. Peace, shalom, oneness with other people. Hashem can send tons of blessing down to you as long as you have shalom with other people. And so anyway, when we think, I don't want to do it, if we think about all the blessings that we want and all the blessings that we have, and we don't want them to crash to the floor, then we'll be single-minded about pursuing shalom. So anyway, I'm going to do this shalom challenge. I don't know about you. You can report back to me if you've done it. If you do it next week, I have at least, I'm going to start with one person that I have a label for, and I'm going to give this person a new label, and I will try and report back to you about my success next week. And I'm going to end here. And anybody who has any questions or comments, please